Alexander Cross didn't believe in signs, not anymore. Not since the universe took his mother without warning and left him holding a eulogy he'd written on a plane between meetings. But on a Tuesday afternoon in late October, when the rain turned Seattle's streets into mirrors of regret, he saw something that stopped his world completely. An old woman bent over on the sidewalk, picking up coins one by one. Alexander sat in the back of his town car, forehead pressed against the cold window. His tie hung loose around his neck. His phone sat face down beside him, 23 unread messages he couldn't bring himself to open. The funeral had ended 4 hours ago. He'd stood beside a casket that cost more than his mother's first house. She would have hated it. The flowers, the marble, the excess. But Alexander hadn't asked what she wanted. He never did. He just signed checks and assumed love could be purchased in increments. The car slowed at a crosswalk, and then he saw her. She was kneeling on the wet pavement, hands trembling as they reached for coins scattered across the concrete. Pennies, nickels, dimes. She wore a thin jacket that wasn't made for this rain, and her gray hair clung to her face in damp strands. People walked past her. Some stepped around her without looking. No one stopped. Alexander watched her struggle to stand, clutching a lamppost for balance. She couldn't have been younger than 75. Her face was lined with years he couldn't begin to imagine, and yet there was something fierce in the way she bent back down, refusing to leave a single coin behind. "Pull over," Alexander said quietly. The car eased to the curb. Alexander stepped out into the rain without an umbrella, without his coat, without thinking. He crossed the sidewalk and knelt beside her, and she flinched, hard, like she expected to be hit. "Ma'am," he said gently, "can I help you?" She stared at him, one hand clutching the coins against her chest. "Please," she whispered, "I just need enough to get to him." Alexander's throat tightened. "Who?" "My son," her voice cracked. "I need to get to my son." Alexander looked at her hands, $5 and change, maybe 6. She'd been collecting this, piece by piece. "Let me help you," he said. She shook her head quickly. "No, I have to do this myself. It has to be mine." "Why?" Her eyes met his. "Because if I don't, who will?" Alexander was 14 the first time he pretended not to know his mother. She'd shown up at his school fundraiser wearing her grocery store uniform. When she waved at him, her smile bright and tired and full of love. Alexander looked away. He pretended he didn't see her. She lowered her arm, nodded to herself, and walked out quietly. Alexander told himself he'd make it up to her someday when he had money, when he could give her everything she deserved. He never did. The rain drummed against the pavement. The old woman was still staring at him, waiting for him to leave. Instead, he held out his hand. "My name is Alexander. I'd like to walk with you." She studied him for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. Margaret Hale. Alexander helped her gather the coins. She counted them twice, then slipped them into a small cloth purse. "Where are we going?" Alexander asked. Margaret looked down the street. "St. Catherine's Hospital. I go every day." "Every day?" "Every single day." She started walking, slow and unsteady. "Rain or shine, he's waiting." Alexander fell into step beside her. "How long has he been in the hospital?" Margaret's voice was barely audible. 7 years. Alexander stopped walking. 7 years. "You don't have to come with me," Margaret said. "Please," Alexander interrupted. "Let me walk with you." They walked in silence. Margaret's breathing was labored, her steps uneven. Alexander noticed the way she winced, the way she paused but never rested. "Why won't you let me help you?" Alexander asked carefully. "Because it has to mean something," she said. "If someone else pays, it's charity, and charity has conditions. Love doesn't." Alexander felt something crack open in his chest. "If I stop showing up because it's hard, because it hurts, because I'm tired," Margaret continued, "then I'm telling him he's not worth the cost, and he is. He's worth everything." They reached a corner. The light turned red. "Do you have children, Mr. Alexander?" Margaret asked. "No." "Then you don't understand yet," she said, "but someday, if you're lucky, you will." Behind them, his phone buzzed. Another message, another meeting, another thing that used to feel important. He didn't look back. They reached the bus stop. Margaret sighed, lowering herself onto the wet bench. He was supposed to visit me that day, Margaret said suddenly. My son, David. It was my birthday. He was bringing cake. Alexander didn't speak. He just listened. He was driving across town. A little girl ran into the street chasing a ball. David swerved, saved her life. Then he hit the barrier. Her voice cracked. The drunk driver walked away. The little girl had a bruised hip. David's been in a coma ever since. 7 years, 2 months, and 16 days. I'm so sorry, Alexander whispered. He's a hero, Margaret said. Everyone said so at first, and then they stopped saying anything at all. People forget, but I can't. He's my son. Alexander thought about his mother, about the nursing home he'd paid for but rarely visited, about the last message she'd left that he never returned. You don't move on, Alexander said quietly. You just keep showing up. Margaret nodded. That's all I know how to do anymore. The bus appeared. Margaret stood slowly. You really don't have to come with me. Alexander thought about the empire that would keep running without him. His mother had died alone because he'd thought it needed him more. I don't have anything more important than this, Alexander said. They boarded. Margaret counted out exact change, dropping coins into the fare box one at a time. $3.75. Back again, Mrs. Hale, the driver said kindly. Back again, Tommy. 15 minutes later, they arrived at St. Catherine's Hospital, a weathered brick building with a faded sign. Margaret stood on the sidewalk staring up at it. He won't know you're here, but I'll know. And somehow I think that still matters. It does, Alexander said. It matters more than you know. St. Catherine's Hospital smelled like disinfectant and resignation. Margaret moved through the space like she'd memorized every step, past the elevator with the out-of-order sign, toward the stairwell. 3 flights, she said. The elevator's been broken since June. She pulled open the door and started climbing. Alexander stayed 1 step behind, watching as she gripped the railing with both hands, pulling herself up. Halfway up the 2nd flight, she stopped, leaning against the wall. I'm fine, she said quickly. Just give me a moment. How long have you been doing this? Alexander asked. Since the beginning, since the day they told me he might never wake up, and I decided that didn't matter. Someone had to remember he's still a person, not just a body in a bed. But you're old? 78 last month. She pushed off from the wall. Being old doesn't mean you stop being a mother, it just means it hurts more. They reached the 3rd floor. A nurse looked up, her face brightening. There she is, right on time, as always. Hello, Patricia, Margaret said. How was he last night? Patricia's smile dimmed slightly. Same as yesterday, Mrs. Hale. Stable. No changes is good, Margaret said like she believed it. Patricia glanced at Alexander. You brought someone today. This is Mr. Alexander. He's a friend. Patricia fell into step beside Alexander, her voice dropping. She comes every day, rain, snow, heat. She's been doing this for 7 years, walks 4 miles, takes 3 buses, climbs those stairs. We've tried to help. She refused everything. Why? She says love is an ode. It's given. Patricia's voice cracked. She's the only one who still believes he's in there. They reached room 347. Margaret stood in the doorway, gathering herself. A man lay in the bed by the window, 42 years old but untouched by time. Machines beeped softly. An IV drip fed into his arm. David Hale. Frozen in time, neither living nor dead, just waiting. Margaret stepped inside, and her entire body changed. Her voice softened. Hello, sweetheart. I'm back. Just like I promised. She sat down, took David's hand, and held it like it was the most precious thing in the world. I brought someone today. His name is Alexander. He has kind eyes, like yours. Alexander stepped inside. A single photo sat on the bedside table. Margaret and David, 15 years ago, both smiling, both whole. Mr. Alexander, come say hello. Hello, David, Alexander said quietly. Your mother speaks very highly of you. Margaret beamed. He was an engineer, brilliant mind. He designed safety systems for cars. He spent his whole life trying to save people. And then he did. He saved that little girl, and it cost him everything. She pulled out a small journal, worn and tattered. I write to him every day. The doctors say he can't hear me, but I don't believe that. Somewhere in there he knows. He knows I'm here. Patricia stepped beside Alexander. His insurance ran out 5 years ago. The hospital keeps him on minimal care. They've told Mrs. Hale it might be time to consider other options. She won't hear it. Other options, Alexander repeated, letting him go. She's 78. She's exhausted. She has heart failure that she won't treat because she spends everything on bus fare. Patricia looked at Margaret. She doesn't have family left. Daughter lives on the East Coast, hasn't visited in 6 years, said it was too hard. So Margaret does this alone. Every single day. I've been a nurse for 23 years. I've never seen anything like this. She's killing herself to keep him company. Alexander felt something shatter in his chest. He thought about his mother, about the room he'd paid for but never sat in, about the message she'd left. I'm so proud of you. Don't worry about me. I love you. She died alone, telling herself it was fine. Just like David was dying alone, except Margaret refused to let him believe the lie. Excuse me, Alexander said. He walked out quickly down the hallway through the stairwell. He made it down one flight before his knees gave out. He sat on the stairs and broke. Sobs tore out of him for his mother, for Margaret, for every person who'd ever been left alone, for every time money had seemed like the answer when presence was what mattered. Footsteps echoed. Patricia sat beside him. She reminds you of someone? Alexander nodded. My mother, he managed. She died 3 months ago in a nursing home I paid for. I visited once a month. She left me a message. I never called back. I thought I had time. You thought money was enough, Patricia said gently, and I thought money was everything. And now? Now I know it's nothing. Not without showing up, not without being there when it matters. Then you understand what Mrs. Hale's doing. I have to help her, Alexander said. Wait, she won't accept charity. Then I'll find another way. He stood. There's always another way. He climbed back up. Margaret was reading aloud, her voice soft and steady. And then Alexander helped me pick up the coins, just like that. It reminded me of you, sweetheart, the way you always stopped to help people. You said helping people was the only thing that made life worth living. Margaret glanced up, saw him with red eyes. She didn't ask questions, she just smiled sadly. You can sit, he doesn't mind company, and neither do I. For the next hour, Margaret read from her journal. Stories about David's childhood, his engineering patents, his heroism. Her voice never wavered. She read like she was giving David proof that he mattered. When visiting hours ended, Margaret kissed David's forehead. I'll be back tomorrow, sweetheart. Same as always. I love you. They walked down the stairs, out into the rain. They stood under the hospital awning. Margaret counted her coins, just enough for the ride home. Thank you for coming with me, she said, having someone else see him, having someone else know he's still here. Margaret started to walk away, then stopped. Your mother, the one you lost. I know regret when I see it. You can't fix what's already gone. But you can honor it. You can make sure the people still here don't end up alone, too. Alexander's throat tightened. How? Margaret smiled. You show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You show up and you stay. That's all love ever is. She walked toward the bus stop, disappearing into the rain, and for the first time in his life, Alexander understood what he'd been missing. Presence. He pulled out his phone. This is Alexander Cross. I need you to find me the best neurologist in the country. Money is no object. I need them at St. Catherine's Hospital as soon as possible. He paused, watching Margaret sit down at the bus stop, exhausted and alone. And find out everything about compassionate care laws. I want to know what it takes to get a long-term coma patient full medical support. Every option, every treatment. Another pause. No. This is anonymous, completely anonymous. No one can know it's me, especially not the patient's family. Across the street, Margaret's bus arrived. She climbed on slowly, disappearing into the lit interior. Alexander stood in the rain and made himself a promise. Margaret Hale would never collect coins on a sidewalk again. David Hale would get every chance medicine could offer. This time he'd show up. Alexander went to his office. His assistant, Miranda, looked up in surprise. Mr. Cross, I didn't expect you back. I need you to cancel everything on my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Miranda blinked. Everything. In 15 years, she'd never seen him cancel a single obligation. I need you to find someone, Alexander said. A neurologist, the best in the world, specializes in coma patients, experimental treatments. Is this for someone you know? Yes. And the patient's name? David Hale, room 347, St. Catherine's Hospital. He's been in a coma for 7 years. And the family? This stays anonymous. The hospital can know I'm covering costs, but the family can't know who's doing it. Miranda hesitated. May I ask why? Because if she knows I'm helping, she'll refuse, and she can't refuse, not this time. Miranda nodded. I'll make it happen. One more thing. I need you to find a Claire Hale, early 40s, East Coast, daughter of David Hale. I need her contact information. What do you want me to tell her? Nothing yet, just find her. Miranda paused. Sir, what happened today? I watched someone love their child more than life itself, and I realized I never gave my mother the chance to feel that from me. 3 days later, Dr. Sarah Chen arrived at St. Catherine's Hospital, one of the world's leading neurologists. Alexander had paid her $25,000 consultation fee without blinking. They met in a conference room. Dr. Chen was mid-40s, sharp eyes, direct manner. Your assistant was very persuasive, she said. Tell me about David Hale. Alexander told her everything. The accident, the 7 years of minimal care, Margaret's daily visits. Dr. Chen sat back. 7 years is a long time. Most patients who wake up after that long have severe impairment. But some do recover. Some do, it's rare. She pulled up her tablet. What made the difference was early intervention with experimental treatments, aggressive therapy, family involvement, and luck. David Hale has had none of that, except his mother comes every day. That's something. Presence matters. The brain responds to familiar voices, to touch. We don't fully understand why, but it makes a difference. So there's a chance. There's always a chance, Mr. Cross, but upgrading his care will cost hundreds of thousands, and it might not change anything. I understand. Or why are you doing this? You're a stranger. Alexander thought about Margaret picking up coins, about his mother's message he never returned, because someone has to, and I have the means. Dr. Chen studied him. All right, I'll examine him, run tests. If he's a candidate, I'll put together a treatment plan. Whatever you need, whatever it costs. One condition, the family needs to consent. Does his mother know? No, and she can't, not yet. She'll refuse help from a stranger. But if it comes through the hospital as a grant, she might say yes. Dr. Chen frowned. You're asking me to help her son without making her feel like she owes anyone anything. Yes. After a moment, Dr. Chen nodded. If she finds out and objects, we stop. Fair enough. His phone buzzed. Miranda. Found Claire Hale. Address and phone number attached. Alexander dialed 4 rings. Hello? Female voice, wary. Is this Claire Hale? A pause. Who's asking? My name is Alexander Cross. I'm calling about your father. Long silence. I don't have a father, not anymore. David Hale is still alive. He's in St. Catherine's Hospital. And your grandmother visits him every single day. Pause. Why are you calling me? Because she's 78. She has a heart condition. And she's killing herself to be there for him. Because she climbs 3 flights of stairs every day. Because she collects coins to afford the bus. Because she does this alone. I can't. Claire's voice cracked. I can't watch him like that. I can't sit in that room and watch my father disappear. He's not disappearing, he's waiting, and your grandmother is the only one still showing up. Why do you even care? Alexander closed his eyes. Because I watched my mother die alone while I was too busy to show up. Because I told myself money was enough and I was wrong. Because someone showed me what real love looks like. It's climbing stairs when your knees hurt. It's collecting coins when you can barely stand. It's showing up every day, even when there's no reason to hope. Silence. Then quietly, what do you want me to do? Come home. Just come home. See her. See him. Be there. I don't know if I can. Yes, you can. You're just afraid, but regret is worse than fear. Trust me. Long pause. If I come, will you be there? Why? Because I don't know if I can do it alone. I'll be there if you want me to be. Okay, I'll book a flight, but please don't tell her I'm coming. You won't change your mind. How do you know? Because you answered the phone. If you really didn't care, you would have hung up. 5 days later, Alexander met Claire at the airport. She was tall, dark-haired, exhausted. Thank you for coming, he said. Don't thank me yet. I might turn around. You won't. They drove to the hospital in silence. Does she know I'm coming? Claire asked. No. What if she's angry? She won't be. Your grandmother has been climbing 3 flights of stairs every day for 7 years. Do you really think she'd turn away her granddaughter? Claire's eyes filled with tears. I left him. What kind of person does that? The kind who was in too much pain, the kind who's human, the kind who's here now. That's what matters. They walked into the hospital. Up the stairs, down the hallway to room 347. Margaret sat beside David's bed, reading aloud. Alexander knocked softly. Margaret looked up, smiled. Mr. Alexander, back again. I brought someone. Claire appeared in the doorway. Margaret's face went still. The journal slipped from her hands. Claire? Hi, Grandma. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Margaret stood slowly, tears streaming. Claire? Is that really you? It's me. They met in the middle, arms wrapping around each other, both crying. I thought you weren't coming back. I thought I'd lost you both. I'm here. I'm here now. I'm sorry it took so long. You're here. That's all that matters. Margaret pulled Claire toward the bed. Look, sweetheart. Claire's here. Our Claire came home. Claire stared at her father. Hi, Dad. I'm sorry I stayed away, but I'm here now. And I'm not leaving again. She took his hand. 3 generations, connected by love and loss and the refusal to let go. Patricia found Alexander in the hallway, smiling through tears. You brought her back. She just needed someone to tell her it was okay. You're a good man, Mr. Cross. No, I'm just trying to become one. 6 months changed everything. Margaret no longer collected coins. The hospital had presented her with a compassionate care grant that covered transportation and David's upgraded care. She tried to refuse, but they insisted she'd earned it. She didn't know Alexander had funded every penny. Claire had stayed, moving into her grandmother's house. Together they made the daily visits. David was never alone anymore, and neither was Margaret. Dr. Chen had assembled a team. They'd started aggressive treatment, experimental drugs, physical therapy, sensory stimulation. And then, on a Wednesday afternoon in April, something happened and Margaret was reading to David. You saved your allowance for months. When you finally had enough, we walked to that shop on Madison Street. The owner let you test ride 6 bikes, blue with white stripes. You named it Lightning. David's finger moved. Just one finger, a tiny twitch. Margaret stopped reading. Did you see that? Claire stood. See what? His finger. It moved. The finger moved again, stronger, deliberate. Margaret grabbed his hand. David? Sweetheart, can you hear me? Move your finger if you can hear me. Slowly, deliberately, the finger moved. Up, down. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Margaret burst into tears. He's there. I knew it. I knew you were listening. Within minutes, Dr. Chen was paged. Tests confirmed it. David Hale, after 7 years and 2 months, was showing voluntary motor response. It was the first step, the first sign that David was fighting his way back. Alexander was in a meeting when Miranda interrupted. St. Catherine's called. David Hale showed voluntary movement. Alexander leaned against the elevator wall. He moved. What you've done for this family? They did this. Margaret did this. She never gave up. Money doesn't wake people up. Presence does. He arrived at the hospital. Margaret and Claire were in the waiting area, crying and smiling. Margaret saw him. He moved, Mr. Alexander. He heard me after all these years. I knew he would. Dr. Chen appeared. Mrs. Hale, David's neurological response is consistent. He's responding to verbal commands. This is the most significant progress in 7 years. Is he waking up? It's too early to say, but for the first time I believe he will wake up. He's fighting his way back. Margaret sobbed. Not from sadness, from hope validated after 7 years. 3 months later, David opened his eyes on a Tuesday morning in July. Not suddenly, just a flutter, but it was enough. Over 2 weeks, he woke slowly. Eyes, head movements, hand squeezes, then words. Mom? Margaret collapsed, sobbing. We're here, Dad, Claire said. You're safe. David's eyes found her. Claire, thought I lost you. Never. I just lost my way. But I'm here now. The doctors warned recovery would be long. But David would recover. Not fully, but enough. Enough to live. Enough to know his mother. Enough to matter. 6 months later, Alexander stood at his mother's grave, holding a jar filled with coins. Hi, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, but I'm trying to be better now. Trying to show up. He traced her name. I met someone, Margaret. She reminded me of you. She taught me that love isn't what you give when it's convenient. It's what you give when it costs everything. The wind scattered leaves. I can't fix what I didn't do for you, but I'm trying to be better for the people still here. He stood. I love you, Mom. I just didn't know how to show it in a way that mattered. You were right. Wealth is what you have. Richness is who you are. I finally learned the difference. Alexander returned to St. Catherine's. He found the Hale family in the rehabilitation wing. David in a wheelchair, Margaret beside him, Claire behind them. All three laughing. Margaret saw him. Mr. Alexander, come in. This is the man who walked with me in the rain. David looked at Alexander. You're the one who helped us. Your mother helped herself. I just made sure she didn't have to do it alone. No, Margaret said firmly. She took his hands. You brought my granddaughter home. You gave my son a chance. You showed up when no one else did. You became family. I don't deserve that. No one deserves family. We're just lucky enough to find it. She squeezed his hands. Thank you for seeing me, for caring when you had every reason not to. Thank you for teaching me what love actually looks like. They invited him to stay. They showed him David's progress, talked about the future, and for the first time, Alexander understood what he'd been missing: presence, connection, love that showed up when it was hard and refused to let go. His mother had tried to teach him that, working 2 jobs, saving coins, sacrificing everything. He'd learned it too late to give it back to her, but maybe learning it at all was enough. Maybe redemption wasn't about fixing the past. It was about changing the future. One person at a time, one choice to show up when it would be easier to walk away. When he left, Margaret walked him to the elevator. Will you come back? If you'll have me. Always. Your family now. The elevator doors opened. Alexander turned back. Mrs. Hale, that day in the rain. What if I hadn't stopped? Margaret smiled. Then I would have kept going alone. Because that's what love is. It keeps going. Even when it costs everything, it keeps going because giving up was never an option. I saw you that day, but you saw me too. You saw that I was broken. Thank you for letting me walk with you. Thank you for choosing to. Alexander stepped out into the evening air. The city spread out around him, millions of moments where someone could choose to walk past or stop and help. He'd spent his whole life walking past, building empires, measuring success in numbers that meant nothing. His mother had died with money, but without what she actually needed. Someone to sit with her and remind her she mattered. He couldn't change that, couldn't go back. But he could make sure it didn't happen to someone else. He could show up, he could see people, he could remember that behind every struggle there was a story worth hearing, a life worth saving, a family worth fighting for. Alexander made a promise, to his mother, to Margaret, to himself. He would show up, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Because that's what love was, the showing up, the staying, the refusing to walk away. And finally, Alexander Cross understood what it meant to be rich, not in dollars, in the things that actually mattered. 2 years later, Alexander stood at a podium launching the Margaret Hale Foundation, dedicated to funding long-term care for coma patients. Margaret sat in the front row, Claire beside her, David there too, walking with a cane, working again, Not the same as before, but alive, awake, here. My mother used to say that wealth is what you have, but richness is who you are, Alexander said. I spent most of my life believing the opposite. He looked at Margaret. And then I met a woman picking up coins on a sidewalk. She taught me that love isn't what you give when it's convenient. It's what you give when it costs everything. She taught me that presence matters more than presents, that showing up is the greatest gift, and that the measure of a life isn't what you accumulate, it's who you show up for when they need you most. Margaret wiped tears from her eyes. This foundation exists because one woman refused to let her son be forgotten, because she climbed stairs every day for 7 years, because she reminded me that I had the power to make sure other families didn't have to face that fight alone. Applause filled the room. Alexander hugged Margaret. Thank you for saving me while I was trying to save you. Margaret laughed through tears. That's what family does. We save each other. Thank you for staying with Alexander and Margaret through every moment of this journey. If this story reminded you that the richest life isn't measured in dollars, but in the people we show up for when they need us most, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. We have more stories that will touch your soul and remind you what really matters. Don't miss them. And if someone in your life has ever shown you what real love looks like, by staying when it was hard, by showing up when it cost them everything, share this story with them. Tell them they were seen. Tell them it mattered. Because the greatest gift we can give isn't what we buy. It's who we become when no one's watching. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, show up, stay, love like it costs everything, because it does.